In an age of giants, where kings touched the sky with stone and ambition, one ruler chose a different path. After monuments that challenged the very heavens, after pharaohs who measured their power by the height of their tombs, one king decided his legacy wouldn't be about size, but about humanity. His name was Menkaure, and his story is a lesson in power, balance, and what it truly means to be great. When Menkaure ascended to the throne around 2530 BCE, Egypt was the superpower of the ancient world. The fourth dynasty was at its absolute peak. Imagine the world he was born into. His grandfather, Khufu, had just built the Great Pyramid of Giza, the largest stone structure ever created by human hands, a feat that would remain unrivaled for nearly 4,000 years. His father, Khafre, built the second largest pyramid and carved his own face into the eternal guardian of the plateau, the Great Sphinx. These were not just tombs. They were statements of divine authority, of overwhelming power, a declaration that the king was a god on earth. The Old Kingdom was wealthy, incredibly organized, and brimming with confidence. But beneath the surface of this monumental age, a subtle shift was beginning. The relentless pursuit of bigger and bigger structures was becoming unsustainable. The resources, the manpower, the sheer will required to constantly outdo the past. It was reaching its limit. Egypt was at a turning point, and the man who would guide it through was Menkaure. Menkaure didn't reject the legacy of his father and grandfather. He refined it. He understood their power, but he saw a different purpose for kingship. He believed a pharaoh's duty wasn't just to build monuments for eternity, but to actively guide and care for the living. His reign was a conscious shift in philosophy. He chose to emphasize justice over fear, order over sheer intimidation, and balance over relentless excess. He was building a society, not just an empire of stone. This wasn't a sign of weakness. It was a sign of profound wisdom. He understood that true, lasting power wasn't just about dominating the landscape, but about winning the loyalty and respect of the people. And it worked. Centuries later, when Greek historians like Herodotus visited Egypt, they heard tales of the pyramid builders. Khufu and Khafre were remembered as tyrants who enslaved their people to fulfill their colossal ambitions. But Menkaure, he was remembered as a just, pious, and merciful king, a ruler who reopened temples and brought fairness back to the land. The most visible symbol of this new philosophy is Menkaure's own pyramid at Giza. He chose to build it right there, next to the giants of his ancestors. But it was fundamentally different. Standing at about 215 feet, it's less than half the height of Khufu's Great Pyramid. To some, it might look like a failure, a sign of decline. But that's missing the point entirely. Menkaure's pyramid was a deliberate statement. Instead of competing in size, he competed in quality and sophistication. The lower 16 courses of his pyramid were encased in massive blocks of red granite, a much harder and more expensive stone that had to be quarried hundreds of miles away in Aswan and transported up the Nile. The craftsmanship was exquisite, more refined than the simpler limestone casings of the larger pyramids. It wasn't designed to overpower the horizon. It was designed to endure with elegance and dignity. Menkaure was sending a clear message to his people and to posterity. Real power doesn't need to shout. True strength lies in quality, precision, and lasting value, not just in brute force and sheer scale. This focus on refinement over immensity poured into the art of his reign. Under Menkaure, Egyptian sculpture reached a new zenith of naturalism and emotional depth. We see a departure from the rigid, godlike figures of the past. The statues from his time show a king with natural proportions and a sense of serene confidence. He looks less like a distant, untouchable deity and more like an approachable human ruler. The most famous examples of this are the magnificent triad statues. In these sculptures, Menkaure is shown standing confidently between two deities, often the goddess Hathor and a local god representing a province of Egypt. The key here is his posture. He isn't kneeling or bowing before them. He stands with them, as an equal partner. The message was revolutionary. The king doesn't rule from above humanity, as a distant god. He rules with the gods, for the benefit of his people on earth. It's a vision of kingship that is both divine and deeply connected to the human realm. The king is the bridge between heaven and earth, a guarantor of cosmic order. This idea of cosmic order, or Ma'at, was the central religious and ethical concept of Menkaure's reign. Ma'at represented truth, justice, balance, and the proper order of the universe. A king's primary duty was to uphold Ma'at on earth. Later Egyptian legends, recorded by Herodotus, tell a fascinating story about Menkaure's piety. The story goes that an oracle foretold he would only rule for 6 years as a punishment from the gods. Why? Because he was too gentle. His justice and mercy were undoing the 150 years of harshness established by his predecessors. Menkaure, defiant, decided to prove the oracle wrong. He ordered lamps to be lit every night, turning night into day, effectively living 12 years in the 6 he was given. While this is likely just a folk tale, it reveals how later generations of Egyptians saw him. They didn't see him as a king punished for being weak. They admired him for it. He became the archetype of the fair and moral ruler, a king who put his people's well-being above even the supposed decrees of the gods. That is a rare and powerful legacy for any ruler in the ancient world. Menkaure's reign was relatively short, lasting perhaps 18 or 20 years. He died before his Grand Pyramid complex could be fully completed. The mortuary temple, intended to be finished in granite, was hastily completed by his successor using mud brick. Yet, his memory endured far longer and more fondly than that of many kings who ruled for decades and conquered vast territories. Why? Because people remembered not just what he built, but how it felt to live under his rule. His legacy wasn't just etched in stone. It was woven into the cultural memory of his people as a time of justice and fairness. He proved that a king's greatness isn't measured by the size of his tomb, but by the quality of the society he nurtures. After Menkaure, the sun began to set on the golden age of the Fourth Dynasty. The era of the pyramid giants was over. Subsequent pyramids became progressively smaller. The immense centralized power of the pharaoh began to slowly decentralize, with more authority shifting to provincial governors and priests. The glorious, high-noon confidence of the Old Kingdom softened into a more traditional, less ambitious era. Menkaure's reign was the last beautiful harmony before the slow decline began. He was the king who looked at the monumental path of his ancestors and had the wisdom to know it couldn't last forever. He chose a new way. So, why does a king who ruled 45 centuries ago still matter today? Menkaure's story is a timeless lesson. He teaches us that true greatness isn't always measured in size, wealth, or military might. He shows us that real power doesn't require cruelty or intimidation. It can be founded on justice and balance. His ultimate legacy is a powerful reminder that what endures is not the scale of our ambition, but the humanity of our actions. He stood among giants, surrounded by the greatest monuments the world had ever seen, and he made the conscious choice to be human. And in making that choice, in choosing mercy over might and balance over brute force, he became truly immortal. If you enjoyed this deep dive into ancient history, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. We have so many more stories to tell, because sometimes, the greatest figures in history are the ones who ruled not with fear, but with a legacy that inspires us thousands of years later. Thanks for watching.